Has there been anything besides the recruiting results to date that have sold you on Marcus Freeman and have shown that this is going to be the hire that you're expecting it to be?
Yeah, and that's tricky. Want to wrap up the recruiting angle of it and then move on, because your question is a great one. When you're looking at the last handful of cycles of the Kelly era and his recruiting, you're looking at a 52 to 55% average blue chip recruit rate, okay, over the last few cycles. If you're looking at 23 and what we got in 24, Freeman's up near 87%. That is a huge, huge talent difference gap. And then you look at what Kelly was able to do with lower talent and how close he was able to get. And you look at that 87% blue chip rate. That is not a slight difference. That's a major talent upgrade across the board. We could be frustrated about Dante Moore going to Oregon. We could do all that. And there is some frustration, but overall, the talent is just, the floor's being raised and what we're getting on the top end's being raised. So that is notable and a huge deal.
And John, before you do move on with Marcus Freeman, one more note on the recruiting that a lot of people don't necessarily see in the rankings, that the rankings places are not created equal. The distance between 1 and 5 isn't necessarily the same as between 5 and 9 and on down the line. For example, I was looking at Ohio State and Michigan from a year ago in 2022. Distance in the recruiting rankings was number 4 versus number 8. Well, if you look at the ratings points, they start to cascade down quickly. And so the distance between that 4 and 8 was the same as the distance between 8 and 24. So on the Notre Dame and Brian Kelly part of this, he was recruiting basically where? Between about 7 and 12, correct? Pretty much.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
So
I think
that sounds like you would be able to take the 7th or 8th or 9th best class in the nation repeated 4 years and say, you should be able to win with that and win big and compete for a national championship. But that's not the top 3 class, 4 class in the nation level. It's like the difference again between like number 3 and 25. There's a noticeable difference.
Yeah. And I did some research on some of those recruiting numbers as well. And in recent vintage, what I learned is the teams that win championships usually have multiple classes right around the top 5 or better for a couple classes leading into the year they win. That seems to be a requirement to win a title, with 2 exceptions: Cam Newton and Lawrence. If you have the best quarterback in the country on your team, you can afford to have little lower level talent spread out everywhere else. Other than that, you got to be in the top 5 or right around it for multiple cycles. That's just what the results say when I look at who wins and what they did leading into it. So it's Kelly did okay, fine, really good, very good. Just couldn't quite push it over that hump. And we're hoping this will be different. But that 87% blue chip rate's outrageous. It's what we've been begging for. All those it's too hard to recruit to Notre Dame, Brian Kelly excuses. Marcus Freeman's first class at Notre Dame is going to be higher rated than anything Brian did in 12. And not that much has changed institutionally. You still got to be able to read and write and get in. So it was an effort thing, Mark. They asked CJ Carr, Lloyd's grandson commits to Notre Dame. That warms my heart, by the way, in a unique way. But they get CJ Carr. Pete Sampson interviews him and says, you were in South Bend a couple times last year for a camp and then the USC game. What was your relationship with Kelly like? Barely saw him when I was in town a couple minutes. Don't really know the guy. There wasn't much there. That's not going to work at Notre Dame. It's never going to work at Notre Dame. You're not going to land the elite of the elite when your head coach just isn't that involved. Okay? It's not going to happen.